how are you doing today? My name is Louis Lee, and I'd like to introduce the Eubanks Conservatory of Music and Arts Guitar Program. Hello, welcome to Eubanks Conservatory of Music and Arts Guitar Program. My name is Louis Lee, and I will be the instructor of this course. The book that you would need is the Eubanks Guitar Pedagogy course, and at the end of each segment, you will be directed on how to obtain a copy of the book. Please have your guitar, a guitar stand, a music stand. Try to be in a comfortable position, a quiet place, and you may want to have some paper and a pencil. I will give you an outline at the end of each lesson, but you might want to highlight certain information of each lesson. Hi, we're going to talk about objectives, what you want to accomplish. And what you want to accomplish is how to practice. You need to practice at least 30 minutes a day and 5 days a week. Now, let's say if you practice 2 or 3 hours one day, that does not mean that you do not have to practice anymore because you've already done your 30 minutes, the requirement. No, you have to be consistent. There needs to be some consistency. Every day you have to practice at least 30 minutes on a regular basis and 5 days a week and take 2 days off. Next, you need to work with a metronome. You want to make sure that you practice with the metronome. I have one here on my phone, and it's free, and it's called Pro Metronome, and you can download these metronomes. They're free, and this is what it sounds like. I'm going to set this to 60 beats per second because that's what you need to practice at. Here we go. And you'll just do a scale. I'm just going to run a scale real quick. 4, 1, 2. Now, why do you practice with the metronome? It helps you with your timing, so you learn how to keep perfect time. It's as if you're a boxer. You have to work with a speed bag, okay? Because if not, you cannot hit your opponent's head because it's moving fast. So it gets your timing together so you can see it. Okay, so timing is very important. It's paramount. So I would ask you to make sure that every time you practice, you have your metronome. Next, you want to make sure that you're always in tune. And there's a tuner that you can get that I have. It's called Pro Tuner. Now there's hundreds of tuners that you can get online. They're free. This is free, but I like this one. If you notice as I speak, it moves. It's very sensitive, and it will really help your ear so that you can develop perfect tuning, okay, perfect pitch. Some tuners, they have a guitar, and if you pluck a note, if it's not that note, then the guitar tuner would not tell you what that note is. But you'll notice this right here is telling me it's moving every time I speak. That's because sound is vibrations. Everything is built on vibrations, the speed of it. Okay, and the E string vibrates at 330 beats a minute. Okay, so that's what it's picking up here, and that's what you're seeing, if you can see that. And the A string is 440 beats a minute. Okay, now if it goes faster, then you can hear the pitch because it vibrates faster. So you want to always make sure that you have a tuner with you as well. Then next, what we're going to cover is always make sure that you're relaxed, that you're sitting in a chair that has a back support. Because a lot of guitar players, what they do is they practice, but they practice on their couch or they'll practice on a box and nothing to support their back. Or they'll sit on a chair, just a regular chair with no back, like a bar stool chair. And then pretty soon their back begins to hurt. So after 2 or 3 days, your back is bothering you. You don't feel like practicing because every time you pick up the guitar, your back is going to hurt. No, what you want, the chair that I have is a secretary's chair. And this is something that would be a good investment It has the lumbar supports, which I'll show you. So it's comfortable. Now these chairs, this right here, a chair like this costs you maybe $60, $70, $80. But you can get one from a thrift shop, any secretary chair. It doesn't have to have all the lumbar supports and all that stuff. Just as long as it's a chair, so it supports your back. So that when you're practicing, you have something to lean on and you're not putting stress on your muscles. That's important too. So always keep that in mind. You want to have, this is all important. Okay, so then next what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a finger exercise. Okay, what is a finger exercise? That's what we're covering right now. It's to develop your dexterity so that it works and it's in concert together, where it's coordinated. So first we're going to work on is the right hand exercise, and I'm going to set my metronome to 60 beats. Now, I'm setting my metronome to 60 BPMs. Those are acronyms, beats per minute, and that's a vernacular. That's what you'll hear in the music industry or in the industry. What is the beats per minute? BPM. So it's set at 60 beats per minute. And what you want to do is you want to pluck all 6 strings 4 times each and use down and up strokes, and I'll demonstrate. And always count with the 1. Now, something I forgot to mention is you hear the loudest sound indicates where the 1 is. The 1 is very important because you need to be able to follow that. So if you get off, you can always jump back on it. If you do not hear it, this is what you have. Now I do not know where the 1 is. So if I get lost, where's the 1? If I look at this, now here's the 1 here, but nothing is telling me in my ear. And it has to be something that is natural and you can feel the 1. The 1 is very important. So set your metronome so that the 1 is distinguished. You can hear it. Having said that, always give yourself a pre-count. What is a pre-count? A count before you start to play. Think of when you're at a race and you're about to run a race. They don't just get up there and the guy fires the gun. He'll say, on your mark, get set, boom, so they're ready. Not he just gets up there because they have to get ready. So as a musician, when you practice, you want to get ready. Don't just jump into it. Always give yourself a pre-count, like this. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now notice how I'm on that beat. That beat is very important. Now you might have noticed that I didn't have to look. You might have to look at what you're doing. I've been playing for quite a long time, so it's natural to me. I know where these notes are because I practice. That's the key word. So I do not have to look, you see? And that's the objective, is to be able to feel it, where you know where that 1 is, or you know where those strings are. Now, the reason why you want to practice with your metronome is to build up your speed and your accuracy. I am playing quarter notes. A quarter note gets 1 beat and 1 count. But watch how I'll play an 8th note, and it will double up, but you can still hear the 1. Here we go. Hear how it's even? Triplets. Sixteenth note. "30 seconds. You know that 1, I want to be on that beat. 2, 3, 4, 1, 64th. On the beat. And then stop. That concludes the section for the finger exercise. Okay, the next segment is theory. You're going to need, as I mentioned in the introduction, the guitar pedagogy book. So we're going to look at page 6. And it's good to know the name of the guitar parts. I like to use big words, and my mother always told me to simplify things, but I said, okay, well, I want to justify my degree and all the money that I paid for it, so I put in a big word. And the big word is nomenclature. So it's the guitar nomenclature, and actually what it means is just the guitar parts. So I just want to explain that to all my students. It says guitar nomenclature, and this is something that you really want to know. How does that relate to the guitar? You want to know about the guitar. You want to know what the headstock is. You want to know what the strings are, the nut, the bridge, the sound hole, so that if you go someplace and you want some strings, you can buy strings and they will not sell you a bridge or a saddle. You understand? So for any guitar student taking the guitar program, you want to know the nomenclature. So that's what we have on page 6. So you want to just make sure that I explain this thoroughly. Now, what we have here is we have two guitars. We have the acoustic guitar and we have the electric guitar. And you want to know the nomenclature because they are different. And the guitar that I was playing prior was an electric guitar. So it has electronics, so it's different from an acoustic guitar. Not unless the acoustic guitar is electric, but it's still different because it's an acoustic guitar, but it's being amplified, so it has electronics. But anyway, what you want to do is learn, and so we have these two guitars here, and I have a list, and it corresponds to the number, and it points to the part. Now, learning is something that I got my master's in, and we learn from repetition. A lot of students, they see this, they do not know. Say this list 30 times, and I'll show you, I'll demonstrate. It says 1, headstock, nut, machine heads, fret, truss rod, inlay, neck, heel, body, pickups, electronics, bridge, pick guard, back, sideboard, body side, sound hole, strings, saddle, fretboard. Now, if I say that 30 times, that's it. I come back the next day at 30 times again. By the 4th day, I have it memorized. It only took me less than maybe 15 seconds to do that. Okay, so by the time I've done this 30 times, it's only going to be maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, so this right here is only requires for the theory, it only requires you to spend 10 minutes. So again, it's repetition. That's how we learn, through repetition. Say the list, there are 20 names, 30 times. That's a good number. Not 10 times, 30 times. And by the 4th day, you'll know it. The 5th day, it's ingrained in your subconscious. It's called subliminal subduction. And then you'll never forget it. Trust me. And we're not talking about learning Shakespeare, a sonnet, to be or not to be. I remember that my mother for church used to always take me for Easter Sunday, and I had to learn a lot. The older I got, the longer the section I had to memorize. And it was difficult, but I had to learn it. This is real simple, just 20 words. So you need to know that. This is very important, okay? So this is the theory. So we cover that. Now, next, we're going to go to page 7. This is page 7. And what this addresses here, this talks about the name of the strings, guitar strings. And when I wrote the book, I try to make sure everything is associated with something so you can memorize it. So it can be memorized, excuse me. And I had come up with acronyms. How can you memorize 6 strings? And I said to myself, how can I do this? Actually, it was a student that I had about 4 or 5 years ago. I'd written this book 5 years ago. She said to me, Eddie A. Dynamite, goodbye Eddie. I said, wow, 10 years old, I learned something from this 10-year-old girl. I said, this is great. So I said, I'll put this in my book. Eddie A. Dynamite, goodbye Eddie. E-A-D-G-B-E. Easy to remember. Eddie A. Dynamite, goodbye Eddie. And that's what this addresses, so that you learn the name of the guitar strings. That's very important, because you would be amazed with a lot of guitar players. They cannot read, they do not know what the notes are, and they don't even know the name of the strings. But they might be able to play very well. I mean, extremely well. But you ask them, what note is that? I don't know. And that's not good, okay? Especially if you're attending this course. So we want you to know this. So remember, on page 7, we're talking about the name of the strings. Now, also it gets into the old way that we used to tune the guitar. Okay, now I showed you how to use the tuner. Okay, now we're going to go back to when I was much younger and they didn't have a tuner. We used to use a pitchfork. And you had to, I don't have one with me, and you would hear the A, and you would hear it, and then play the A string open. Or you would go to a piano and play A note. Or you had a pitch pipe and you would blow it, and then you would associate with that. Or you would do that and you would use harmonics. And we'll get into that later. But the standard way they used to have it is they would compare the note on the 5th fret with the preceding note. And that's okay, but that's not perfect, because it's too callous. The ear cannot really hear, and it could be slightly off because we're dealing with vibrations. So when I was much younger, because I was a classical player, we used to tune and use harmonics. And I can hear that this one is slightly off because it vibrates fast. We'll get into this in the next lesson, but I wanted to talk about what this is in the book, so if you see it, you know what it's referring to. And this is the second section. It's talking about just how to tune and using the strings to keep the guitar in tune. Now, the way the book was written, it's written for beginners, intermediate, and advanced. Because now if you go down to the bottom part, we're talking harmonics. And it gets into the megahertz of how fast it's vibrating. This is advanced stuff. This isn't for beginners. But advanced players want to know that. And so that's what it's addressing. So you'll see it as beginners, intermediate, and advanced. All of that's written here so that you understand. If you see this, you wonder what it is, do not worry about it. Years later, you'll come back. It'll make sense. The book was written that way. So with that in mind, that's a section for the finger exercise. Once again, you want to always use a downstroke when you're playing. And I'll demonstrate that again. Always use a downstroke. That is just a natural movement. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not an upstroke. It's always a downstroke. Remember that. 1, 2, 3, 4. And always use upstroke. So it's down, up, down, up. Think of if you were being chased by a pit bull. Would you run left, right, or would you skip? No, you're going to run left, right, so you can get out of the way and don't get bitten. So it's the same way. If you want to speed, you want to go down, up, down, up. So remember that. It's down, up, down, up, down, up. Now, in certain cases, you might have to use upstroke, because then it gets into just the sound artistry of what you're trying to play. To get a certain sound, you need to use upstrokes. But that's something different. Just wanted to clarify that and address it, because there are exceptions to every rule when you might have to use an upstroke or whatever, or two downstrokes or whatever, you know, any combination thereafter. But for practicing, always practice down, up, down, up. Very good, and that concludes this part of the section. Hi, this is the fun part, which I know you're going to enjoy. If you're a beginner, what you want to do is have fun with the guitar. Have fun meaning, let me just check my tuning real quick. See how I always check my tuning? It's amazing how I've had students come to me and I ask them, have you tuned up? And they'll say, yeah, I tuned up 3 days ago, or I tuned up before I left. Okay, no. You have to always check your tuning, because we're dealing with metals and the air can affect the tuning. And what you do not want is to be doing a session and the temperature is cool and it affects your strings, and now you're out of tune, you're flat. And you're not aware of it, and you're recording and they're paying you, and then when you leave, the engineer they listen to it, they say, he's out of tune. And you've already left, and they spent all that money to pay you. And then you're wondering why they do not call you back. Well, I wonder why they haven't called me. The reason, you want to make sure you're always in tune, just like you saw. I tuned before, and I just slightly got out of tune. And I'm really, this is a nice guitar. This is a Gibson. This is a Les Paul. But it has nothing to do with it. It can get out of tune, no matter what the cost. If it were inexpensive, expensive, does not matter. You want to always check your tunes. Now I'm in tune. Okay. So now if you're a beginner, what you want to do is just strum the guitar. And we're going to turn on the metronome. Because remember, you want to always practice with your metronome. I always practice with my metronome. We're setting this at 60 beats a minute. So what you want to do is just strum it. We're going to do something really simple. You want to count 1, 2, 3, 4. And you may say that's boring, but I remember when I first started playing the guitar, just to pick up the guitar and to strum it was exciting. It's just that later on, it becomes a little bit monotonous and you want to do something else. But in the very beginning, to strum it is really fun. Or what you can do is you can take your first finger, and remember the nomenclature. These are your frets. So you want the second fret, put your first finger on the second fret, the first 4 strings, and you strum from the 5th string, the A string down, 2, 3, 4. Now we have a chord, we have an A chord. Then you can go over. Now I'm making some music. Now for the advanced students, you can take that same exercise, which when I say advanced, the intermediate, and mix up the rhythm. I was playing a straight rhythm because as a beginner, that's what you're going to have. And you can follow the metronome easier. But the intermediate, you can mix that rhythm up. You can do something like 1, 2, 3, 4. I slid up. Go to the 3rd fret. Now, if you play a Les Paul or a Strat or a Tele or any guitar, and you're in a band, you can get fancy with it if you have devices, these foot pedals, and you can put distortion. We're not using it here right now because it's not appropriate, but maybe later in the next episode we might do that. But right now, just try to be creative when you're playing. We'll try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's something extra in there. Went from the third to the fifth. Simple chord. Simple chord. Nothing real fancy, but it's musical. I'm following the beat. Now, if I wanted to get fancy, I would mute the strings with my right hand like this. Now, what I am endeavoring to demonstrate here is how with music you want, because it's spiritual, and what you want to do is make it spiritual. And the only way you can do that is you have to practice and let loose. You have to connect. You have to connect with the instrument. But that takes a little time. But you'll start playing and you'll notice that you'll come up with something. It will not happen overnight. It's with anything. But when you play, because it's an instrument and it creates sound, you want to make sure that every time you play that the sound is beautiful. Whenever you touch it, think of you're like a cardiologist. You cannot go into the operating room and go, oops. What does oops mean? Oops is not good for the patient, that is, and for you. Okay, I digress a little bit. However, that's the same way. Oops means you made a mistake. And with this guitar, when you pick it up, you want to make sure you do not make mistakes. So think of it that way. Once you touch it, you don't want to make any mistakes. That's not an option. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 4. I'm practicing for perfection. So you can hear the chord in each and every note. 4. It makes sense. 4, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 4. 2. Now, what we're going to do is conclude with this, and I hope you enjoyed the lesson that was presented to you today, and I look forward to our next one. I hope you continue to follow us and to watch us, and that concludes this portion of the lesson.